Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Sunday, February the 8th, February the 8th. I'm getting my days a little bit messed up, but anyway, it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we'll be talking a little bit about that. But also, let me say hello to our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. George, welcome to Super Bowl Sunday. I guess we'll do our own version of a pregame show here.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's always good to get together with you. But, well, it is February the 9th, isn't it? Or no, the 8th, February the 8th. Okay, for a minute there, I'm a little bit out of routine because I'm not at my regular spot. Usually at my regular spot, I've got a calendar in front of me with the date. And here I had to think about what date it was. So February the 8th is when we are recording this. But anyway, it's Super Bowl Sunday. So the game will be starting, I guess, in a couple of hours. And I wanted to pick your brain a bit. I'm picking New England, not because I've done any great analysis of the game, because these are not the two teams that we normally follow. But I don't know. I just I guess I'm in a patriotic mood these days. So I'll pick the Patriots. How is that for my analysis, George?
I think that's pretty good. I think they've shown that they've got a very, very balanced, good team. However, I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks, not because I like them. I would prefer the Patriots to win, but the Seahawks have a tremendous defense. And while the old saying that says that offense sells tickets, defense wins games.
Yes,
I think that the Seahawks may have the inside track on winning today.
Well, that sounds like a very good analysis. I was going to say that I like the Patriots because I like their uniforms, the old uniforms. I don't know if you remember their old uniforms; they were fantastic. I wish they had never changed, but anyway, they're both very good teams, and I'm sure that they'll put on a good game for the fans, and that's really all I want. When the Cowboys are not playing, or when I don't really have a favorite team. At one time, the Packers, I used to follow them a lot. Then the Cowboys. I don't, neither one of those two guys is in there, or the two teams is in there. So I just want a good game. And hopefully these two teams will give us exactly that. Now, let me pick your brain just a bit, because you and I guess the good news about you and I is that we remember the first Super Bowl. At least I do, the Packers and Kansas City. I'm sure you remember that. So that's kind of the good news about people like you and me, that we remember that very first Super Bowl. And I have watched all of them over the years, some with more interest than others. The first one was just curious. I mean, that was just curiosity, that first game. Plus, the Packers were in it, and I was living in Wisconsin at the time, so it made sense. But my favorite game, actually, of all the games they've played, and I don't even know what number they're up to now, my favorite one was in 1979, would have been January 79 or February 79, when the Cowboys and the Steelers played in the Super Bowl. And that was the famous game when Jackie Smith dropped that ball. Remember that ball?
Yeah.
That was, I guess it would have been a touchdown, or you never know, but he dropped it. But that was just one portion of that. I mean, that game was such a great game because both teams really fought to the end. And that still stands out in my mind as my favorite Super Bowl. I don't know if you have one, George.
My favorite Super Bowl was very recent, was in 1993, or at least by our standards.
Yeah,
very recent. In 93, when Troy Aikman took them to the first Super Bowl in the long time.
Yeah.
And they really obliterated. I mean, that's a good word to put it. A good way to put it. They obliterated the Buffalo Bills. What was the score? 52-17.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
I relished that game. I loved it. Still my favorite game.
Yeah, that was the first of three that they won during a 4-year span, and that was such a great team that the Cowboys had back then. But every time I drive to Houston, I drive by Buffalo, Texas. Mm-hmm. It's one of the exits I don't think we actually go into the city, but it's just one of the exits, and there's a place there to put gasoline or whatever, and maybe get something to drink. And I every time I drive by there, I think of that game for some reason, or those games when they beat Buffalo twice. So I don't know, Buffalo, Texas. I don't know if they have a Dallas, New York, but we have a Buffalo, Texas. So I guess that's our way of showing some love and respect for the Buffalo Bills, who, if you remember, during that streak, they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah.
They lost to the Redskins. They lost twice to the Cowboys, and they lost to the 49ers, I think. I think those were the 4. No, wait a minute. They lost to the Giants, the Redskins, and then back to the Cowboys. Yeah. So that was Jack Kelly, or was it Jim Kelly? Jim Kelly, the quarterback, who was a fantastic athlete, great quarterback, one of my favorite of all time. And the poor guy lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. You know, that's rough when that happens. Frank Tarkenton, if you remember him, had the same misfortune. So it's sometimes just great, athletes, like great hitters or great pitchers, just don't get that crown. And it doesn't mean anything. It just means that they were just on the wrong team. But Jim Kelly, what a great player he was. I loved him. But anyway, let's get into some of the politics, George. We've got a few things I want to talk about. First of all, your reaction to this famous monkey video that came out. I guess they call it monkey video because that's what everybody's talking about. I saw it. I didn't have a reaction either way. Then I saw it the second time, and I said, well, maybe it wasn't a good idea to feature former President Obama and Mrs. Obama and, as monkeys. Maybe that's a little insensitive given, racial history of the country. Maybe that wasn't very smart. But, overall, in a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being Snow White, a pure Disney movie, and number 10 being having to listen to Castro for 5 hours, maybe I rate this video like a 2. Not the worst thing that ever happened, but it could have been smarter. So, there it is. It could have been smarter. They could have avoided featuring Obama as a monkey. I think that opened up a lot of criticism. But I also want to say something, George, about the other side, because the other side has been telling us for 10 years that Trump is Hitler, that ICE is now Gestapo, that Trump is going to cancel the next elections, awful things they've said about him, and also awful videos they've done about him, showing him as everything but Satan. Or I guess sometimes even Satan. So, the other side, they shouldn't be throwing a lot of stones, George. They should be, they should just laugh a little bit and move on, George.
I agree. The first, I thought it was in poor taste at the very, very beginning. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just thought it wasn't the smartest thing to do. However, once the outrage began on the left, the thing that came to mind immediately was this actress, this supposed comedian, holding a head of the of President Trump,
right,
holding his head. That was neither funny nor was it political in any form or fashion. That was really just gross.
Right.
And that I remember that there was no outrage from anybody on the left on that one. They thought it was just free speech. They thought it was just someone expressing an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's selective outrage that the left has. And this is another example of it. It wasn't smart. It wasn't a good idea. Whether it offended me, no, it did not offend me. Whether it offended them directly, well, I guess it did. That's why they protested about it. But they who are without sin should cast the first stone.
That's the line I was trying to remember about the stones. They've said so many awful things about President Trump. They used to say a lot of awful things about George W. Bush, if you remember. And so these people specialize in saying awful things. And some of the videos that I've seen posted of Trump are pretty nasty, I would say, even at times. Like you say, the incident with holding the head, like somebody chopped his head off. I thought that was so over the top. I'm surprised the Secret Service didn't give her a call.
Yeah.
Maybe they did. But I just think that, as you say, they've practiced this kind of vicious, brutal attack over the years. And I can't tell you the number of times, I'm sure you've had the same experience, when you're on TV and there's a person on the other side telling you that Trump is going to cancel the elections.
Yeah.
I had a guy recently say to me, this is during remember the Senator Kelly video that came out about not taking or accepting illegal orders or whatever?
Right.
I had a guy say to me on TV one day that Trump was going to order the troops on the streets to kill Americans. And I said, well, what do you base that on? I mean, where does that come from? And he goes, well, don't you remember January the 6th? And I said, yeah, I remember January the 6th, but I don't remember anybody ordering troops to kill Americans. If anything, the only person who was killed that day was a protester. Yeah, so what the heck are you talking about? So anyway, so they've engaged, George, in this kind of vicious, I guess, line of attack. In my opinion, much more vicious in that video, because there were parts of that video that were actually pretty funny. And if they had used another animal to depict Obama, let's say Obama was a zebra, I don't know, whatever, it wouldn't have been controversial. The only thing that made it controversial was the donkey. That was Hillary, I think. And look, I understand, because over time, that's unfortunately how blacks were depicted. So I understand that. I understand the sensitivity. But my goodness, the stuff they've done to Trump, I think they need to, as you say, take it easy and move on, George.
And they won't. That's the whole problem. They won't. This will be replayed and replayed and replayed. And, it is a situation, again, I call it selective outrage, because they get very upset over the things that are convenient and ignore those that are not.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right about that. When they go back and they clean up their act, then come in and give us your indignation. But I think you said this correctly: selective indignation or selective outrage. There's a lot of that on the other side. All right. Well, let's move on to a very, I don't know what word to describe this race between Mr. Talarico and, I guess, Miss Crockett. And this is, of course, for the Senate primary, the Democrat Senate primary. He was saying something about a mediocre black man, and I guess that kind of got things going. But Mr. Talarico, I guess he's running an ad, by the way, in the Super Bowl today, so you might want to keep an eye on that. He's running against billionaires, which I always thought was kind of funny, because I thought there were a lot of billionaires who supported Democrats. I'm not sure if he's talking about those.
Well, I'm thinking the biggest billionaire that they've got as supporters is George Soros. So I'm not sure what that's going to be all about. I know the Heinz family with their billions supports supports the Democrats, as well as the old Kennedy clan, who supports everybody except RFK now, who is
that's right,
who is in the Trump administration. But it really is interesting. The Ford Foundation has been found to be one of the biggest donors to these protesters, and they're not exactly poor. They're not exactly a mom and pop shop.
No. I think the people behind the Ford Foundation probably would. I mean, I don't know if everybody in the family is a billionaire, but let's just say there's probably a couple who are. But again, these attacks, I don't know, George, if maybe, I look at him and I honestly say this guy's a flake. But maybe that's because where I stand politically, I don't know if this is going to play well with the people here in Texas. I don't think so. But when he goes after billionaires, I think his target is actually Elon Musk. I think that's who he's going after.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say it. And if he is going after Elon Musk, which I wouldn't be surprised, because they were all in love with Elon Musk when he put out the electric car, and then when he switched to Trump, now he's horrible. But if they're going after Elon Musk, I would like to know how many jobs or opportunities, Talarico has created. Because whatever you may think of Elon Musk, the guy has probably created more jobs and brought more taxes to states than anybody recently.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he wants to do away with that, George, and have poor people in charge of things. Because the truth is that I don't know about you, but I never had a poor person offer me a job, George.
No, that's that is a very good truism of, where is wealth created? It's not created from the poor. And as much as we would like to say, that the poor deserve this, the poor deserve that, the fact of the matter is that they do not create wealth. And so therefore, in a community, in an economy, that it's all about creation of personal private wealth, it's got to come from somewhere. It's got to come from wealth that's already been created, that is invested, wealth that is from people that have the ability to create wealth. And it is that is something that flies in the face of these Marxists. The situation that we've also got is that we've got Talarico, a white male, playing to the social clash, to the class conflict positions, because, well, that's the best he can do. On the other hand, you've got a black female who plays to the racial issues, because that's the best she can do.
Right.
It's really sad that they've got to use negatives in order to try to gain positives, which is something that's impossible. Something
Right.
that is absolutely impossible.
That's right. And again, with Talarico, I would simply ask the simple question. I mean, yes, there are billionaires who are billionaires, Elon Musk, but there are also a lot of other people who never get there, who lose their money in their quest to build or whatever. I mean, so there's a lot of people who lose a lot of money in their pursuit of these companies and so on. And what Elon Musk has done in terms of building, this company, Tesla, and other things that he's done, look, I admire that. I mean, there are more jobs. Elon Musk has probably created more jobs in Central Texas than Talarico could dream of making or creating. And so I don't know why he's picking billionaires, but I sure hope the Republican nominee.
He's picking on billionaires.
Yeah, he is. But I hope the Republican nominee, whoever it is, and we'll talk about that one some other time, reminds him of people like you say, George Soros, and some of these other billionaires who I think are more destructive in how they use their money than Elon Musk.
Definitely.
And so hopefully that he'll be reminded of that. But, I was watching an analysis of this campaign, and she was being interviewed, and she said, well, you know me, if they attack me, I'm going to fight back. She was referring to the bit about Allard being or a mediocre man or something like that. Do you expect that this is going to get nasty before the first Tuesday of November, the first Tuesday of March, or that it's going to be nasty after that? I mean, what do you see? I mean, how do you see this thing go?
I think it's already gotten nasty. I think behind the scenes, the race war is already on. And there is, Colin Allred, I think,
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Colin Allred shot the first bullet. And whether or not it was planned or not, that's what he did. And now the cat is out of the bag. The race cat is out of the bag. They're having to deal with it. I just don't see how they can ignore it anymore. She's going to have to either defend it or use it some more. And I think that as she loses ground, and I just don't think how she can gain ground. I mean, there have been many pundits, many political pundits that have already called her the worst candidate that you can have. She's not smart. I don't think she's that good looking. And then secondly, she's racist.
Right.
I mean, she uses race for everything, to defend for everything or to attack everything.
Yeah.
And so that within itself is going to hurt her. And things are going to go south from here on because whether they like it or not, Talarico is going to be the better candidate only because he will appeal to more people.
He will. But do you think he can? I think the big question is, I mean, my conclusion is that they're both going to the runoff because there's got to be a third candidate there who will.
I think that's going to be terrible. If they have a runoff, it's going to be bloody and it's going to hurt them. And, for Talarico, what's happening is that he has not been exposed. Nobody has focused on him because he's been a nobody. He's been a nobody for the past 6 years. And so now they're all of a sudden they're going to be focusing on him, and he is going to be, I mean, he's already beginning to show that he's a lightweight when it comes to policies and explaining them. Right. And it's, I think that I just don't think that this is a win-win situation at all for the Democrats.
Well, but George, if I'm a serious Democrat, and there are many, I mean, I know sometimes, I mean, to me, there's a lot of serious Democrats.
It's funny that you have to explain that.
Yeah, but I mean, there are still many, many serious Democrats who would like to have a Democrat senator. And that's fine. That's the way it goes. What discussion about issues have these two had? No. I mean, Talarico is off on some of the craziest thing. This thing about abortion, that somehow the angel came down or appeared to the young woman Mary and asked for her consent to have the baby. Now, look, I don't remember that story. The way I thought it came down was that the way I thought it went down, the way I read about it or learned about it, is that the angel came down to announce to Mary that she was blessed and that she was going to be the mother. I don't remember anything like, the angel coming down and going door to door and asking young women, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? Let me check with the girl next door if she gives me her consent.
She was chosen.
Exactly.
Very clearly, it says in the scriptures, she was chosen above all women.
Exactly.
And, so, and once she said yes, there wasn't a choice as to whether or not she wanted to go through the onto the birth. There was no choice on that. So it is convenience in religion, political convenience in religion that he's trying to explore.
But how in the world do you go from abortion, from having a conversation on abortion, I mean, Talarico, that is, having a conversation on abortion and choice, to using that specific example of the young Mary who was being, who the angel was saying to, that she was going to be the mother of the baby. I mean, that to me, that should be as far from abortion as any conversation. I mean, that's the first time in my life that I've heard any supporter of abortion make that argument. They make all kinds of arguments, like my body, my choice, or maybe economic reasons for having an abortion, or maybe rape, or stuff like that. But I never heard,
no. And
Mary
what he
being brought into this. It's insane.
He wants to justify universal abortions. He wants to justify complete and total abortions, abortion on demand.
Yes.
And I don't know. To me, it's just, it's like trying to. Well, we've got to understand that Cain was angry and jealous, and therefore that's why he killed Abel.
Right.
And you've got to be sensitive to that.
Right. And I just, I've heard a lot of arguments in favor of abortion over the year. I'm sure you have too. The most common one is rape, incest, a threat to the mother's life. Those are the more common ones. But I had never heard abortion and the young woman marry uh, and consent or whatever he calls it. That's a new one for me, and I think that's going to be flaky. That whole explanation, George,
Yeah.
is going to be flaky in South Texas,
I would
where
hope so. I would hope so.
yeah.
Although I haven't heard, oddly enough, I haven't heard that much pushback. But
Well, because they're still in the Democrat Party. I think once they get into the election, I think you'll probably hear a little bit more. I've seen a lot of stuff online from pro-life groups talking about this and saying, my goodness, where did this explanation come from? As I said, the one we've heard over the years is rape, incest, threat to the mother's life. Okay, but this one is a whole new one. Well, we'll see. I guess the primary is coming up real soon. What we've seen so far is that one poll has her up, another poll has him up. So it's probably too close to call. That would be my guess right now.
I actually saw
Did
uh,
you?
a poll that said that he was um, up on over her, because initially, when they both announced, she was above him by something like
Right.
uh, 15 points, but now he's above her by about 10. And so
Because
that's
I saw one that had it within three. But I
ah,
think the question I have is, are they going to get over 50? Because one of them has to be over
yeah, right,
50.
right.
And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Is
And
there a third?
I have not heard about a third
Yeah,
candidate.
I don't know if there's a third candidate who's going to
So
take 5% or something like that and force. I don't know. We'll have to see as it gets closer. Well, let me just take one more look at Texas politics here, George, and that's what's happening in South Texas. There are going to be some new districts down there, as you know. How does it look for the GOP in South Texas? Not so much the primary, but in general, looking to the general election and these new districts, George. How do you see it?
it seems that the thing that's effective in affecting these districts along the border lately is the issue of ICE and undocumented workers.
Okay.
That seems to be coming very, very big. There's a couple of folks who are very, very, in my opinion, they're Republican candidates that are getting kind of cold feet over the issue of ICE and undocumented workers. That it's affecting the vegetable picking along the border. Lots of big, big vegetable farms along the border from Del Rio all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley, and some of them are being affected because there's not enough undocumented workers. Well, um, I think that these Republican candidates need to be careful how they couch themselves, because if they start uh, playing into the Democrats' point of view, the White House is going to cut them off real quick.
Right.
On the other hand, they do need to play to the constituents who seem to be. I mean, the best way that I can describe it is that a lot of these farms, a lot of these ranches are hooked on undocumented workers. They have been using them for so long, I mean, centuries,
Mm-hmm.
that that's what they're used to. That is their uh, sole class of people, of employees. I mean, that's who they depend on, and they're going to need to make an adjustment. That's going to be tough, but I mean, it's not the world that my grandfather lived in, when there used to be so many illegals that it was, wink, wink, okay, come on across, and that they would get permission and to work, and then they'd stay and get married, and before not long they stayed as citizens eventually. Well, some of them never became citizens, but that seems to be playing into some of these. There's a couple of them that are hurting Myra Flores, and on the Democrat side, um, gosh, what's his name? Gutierrez down in Rio Grande Valley. It's hurting him. Tony Gonzalez hasn't said very much about it, but I know that he's heard. He's gotten an earful. He doesn't have a real Democrat opponent yet, but that's been and Cuellar certainly is getting an earful from both sides, from both Republicans and Democrats. So it'll be very, very interesting how all of that plays out.
Well, I'm hoping, George, for exactly the reasons you've outlined. I'm hoping that President Trump in the State of the Union addresses that issue and somehow says, I'm not talking about amnesty, but some kind of a program where maybe some of these workers can be sponsored under some arrangement so that they can work legally, but not amnesty or something like that. So I'm hoping that maybe he can address it, because I think if he does, if he were to address it in the State of the Union from the perspective of economics, not immigration, the perspective of economics, that hey, the reality is we'll need some of these people in South Texas and somewhere else. If he can tackle that issue, that could be very beneficial for him, with some of the Hispanics who see it more as economics than immigration. But we'll see what he says on the State of the Union. I know he's probably got other things you want to say, but I just feel that that's an opportunity for President Trump to tackle a difficult issue that, you're right, is impacting ranchers, not just here, but in other places, and come up with some kind of an idea, some kind of a program where they can say, okay, look, you can work in these ranches on some kind of a sponsorship basis, so that you're here legally in the sense that we recognize your work. I'm not talking about citizenship or path to legality or anything like that. I'm simply saying we're going to give you an opportunity to work in these ranches legally, and then when the work is done, you go home with a bunch of cash. Something like the Bracero program that once
exactly the Bracero program could work if it's very, very tightly managed.
Right.
The headache that was always with the Bracero program was that they would ask for 500 employees. 500 would come across, and then by the end of the year, you would have maybe 250 still.
Right.
What happened? Well, we don't know. They went back. They deserted. The employer has got to be taken, has got to be given some type of authority or accountability, because without that, they just keep resupplying themselves.
Right. Exactly. No, I agree. I mean, there were many problems in the execution of the Bracero program, but the idea was a good idea.
Yeah.
That you would have people legally work here instead of working illegally. At least they'd be working, and if handled properly, it would be good for both the employer, the rancher, let's say, and the person coming over, because you wouldn't have someone working here illegally. Now, we do have a guest worker program as part of the law. There is something called the guest worker program.
The
B2. I don't know what the number is, but I mean the idea that you can actually bring somebody legally.
However, that one is used mostly for technical.
Well, okay.
Programs, and what we're talking at this point is non-technical, low skill labor. And what we have run into constantly is with the Democrats saying, well, that's tantamount to slave labor. Well, then what do you want us to do? Bring in people that are computer savvy to pick the vegetables?
Right.
Or better yet, let's get people on welfare to go out and pick it up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats are going to oppose anything Trump does. That's just the reality. But I think if logically presented, which I'm sure Trump can do, and present it along the lines of economics, and and say we're going to bring people over, or the people, or even the people who are working for you right now, we're going to give them some kind of a temporary visa so they can work with you, and then they can go back home, type of deal. I think if they could work out something like that, it may resolve this, because there is, I mean, look, we cannot deny that there is a dependence that many of these ranchers have developed for these kinds of workers. I was reading something, I think I sent you a copy. The exact same thing is happening in Minneapolis, not with agricultural workers, but the fact that the entire city has become addicted to illegal immigrants. And if all of a sudden you're deporting them, what are they going to do? Who's going to? So
their economy has to change. Wow.
Right. And I'm hoping, George, I'm hoping that as as we move forward, that we say, okay, look, we concentrated on the people who are criminals. Now we're going to go to a different stage of the program where we'll continue to support the criminals, but at the same time, we're going to be, we're going to be savvy, and we're going to look at it from an economic standpoint and say, okay, look, if you need people to pick vegetables, we're going to give you some kind of a legal avenue to do it. Not amnesty. I'm not talking about amnesty. Some similar to the Bracero program, but better run. So we'll see. I think that's a challenge that's something the White House maybe needs to mention in the State of the Union. I think if they do, it could. I think it could make a lot of these people a little bit more comfortable. Well, George, we got a big game coming up. I'm picking New England. I think you said Seattle. Yeah. We'll see who turns out to be right.
I'll say the Astros. The Astros.
Yeah, well, I'm in Astros territory right now, and I kind of miss the Rangers when I'm in Astros territory, but that's okay. Good rivalry, good baseball rivalry between.
I'll tell you, I am backing Mark Teixeira for Congress here in San Antonio completely.
Yeah, all the way with Mark, who came up in the Ranger system, was actually a very good first baseman, very good power hitter, ended up with the Yankees because of the free agency thing. But I've always thought he was a great player, and I'm glad that he's running, and it looks like he's going to win.
He got this past week, he got the endorsement of President.
He sure did. He sure did. I saw that. I think President Trump likes him because Teixeira played on the last Yankee team to win the World Series, which is 2009. And we know what team Trump likes. He likes the Yankees. So anyway, George, thank you so much for joining us here on Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see how the game turns out. I hope it's a good game. And you and I will chat politics again the next time. Thank you so much, George.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. Our good friend, George Rodriguez from South Texas. As always, I'm actually not in North Texas today. I'm actually in East Texas. But again, just wanted to say hello to George and get some perspective. But what we were talking there about at the end, we're going to get into more of this at another time. Look, it's a reality that some of these ranchers need some of these workers. But what we have to come up with is a legal way to do it, a legal way that they can bring them or hire them. We don't want to have illegal immigration, but if we could come up with some kind of a system, and at one time there was a system called the Bracero program that wasn't perfect, as George was saying, but did work fairly well. And if we could have something like that program, by the way, was canceled in the 1960s by President Johnson and the Democrats. But that program could actually be the idea, and I hope President Trump and the White House, as they're putting together, let's say, the continuation of what we're doing with ICE and immigration and so on, that we can say, look, now we're going to concentrate on some of these people who are economically important for the country because they can, work in these ranches and so on. And we're going to try to come up with a sensible way of having them work here. I think that's a big step if the White House can come up with something like that. Thank you for listening. As I say, good luck to the Patriots. I like the Patriots. I've always liked the uniform. So good luck to the Patriots. Have a great day. This is Silvio Canto, not in Dallas, but in East Texas tonight. Thank you for listening.